The sword of mighty God AHAYAH and the fire of his jealousy is in the earth. Let's talk about the sword today, covering several chapters in the King James Version Bible. We're starting off with Matthew 5:17. Yeshua said, the Messiah, "Think not that I am come to destroy the law or the prophets. I am not come to destroy, but to fulfill. Think not that I am come to send peace on earth. I came not to send peace, but a sword. Suppose ye that I am come to give peace on earth? I tell you, nay, but rather division. Therefore be you also ready, for in such an hour as ye think not, the Son of Man cometh. Be you therefore ready also, for the Son of Man cometh at an hour when you think not." And AHAYAH said from the beginning, "And I will put a division between my people and thy people." He's talking about Satan's people. As AHAYAH stated in the beginning in Genesis 3:15, "And I, AHAYAH, will put enmity, which is hatred, between thee, Satan, and the woman who was Eve, and between thy seed and her seed. It shall bruise thy head, and thou shalt bruise his heel. Supplant up his lies. For the word of mighty God AHAYAH is quick and powerful, and sharper than any two-edged sword, piercing even to the dividing asunder of soul and spirit, and of the joints and marrow, and is a discerner of the thoughts and intents of the heart. Neither is there any creature that is not manifest in his sight, but all things are naked and open unto the eyes of him with whom we have to do. For AHAYAH thy mighty God is a consuming fire, even a jealous mighty God. Let the high praises of mighty God AHAYAH be in their mouth, and a two-edged sword in their hand. Thou therefore, Son of Man, prophesy and smite thine hands together, and let the sword be doubled the third time, the sword of the slain. It is the sword of the great men that are slain, which entered into their privy chambers. I have set the point of the sword against all their gates, that their heart may faint, and their ruins be multiplied. It is made bright, it is wrapped up for the slaughter. And you shall chase your enemies, and they shall fall before you by the sword. And 5 of you shall chase 100, and 100 of you shall put 10,000 to flight, and your enemies shall fall before you by the sword. And upon them that are left alive of you I will send a faintness into their hearts in the lands of their enemies, and the sound of a shaken leaf shall chase them, and they shall flee as fleeing from a sword, and they shall fall when none pursueth. Understand therefore this day, that AHAYAH thy mighty God is he which goeth over before thee, as a consuming fire. He shall destroy them, and he shall bring them down before thy face. So shalt thou drive them out, and destroy them quickly, as AHAYAH hath said unto thee. AHAYAH our mighty God shall smite thee with a consumption, and with a fever, and with inflammation, and with an extreme burning, and with the sword, and with blasting, and with mildew, and they shall pursue thee until thou perish. The sword without and terror within shall destroy both the young man and the virgin, the suckling also with the man of gray hairs. Thus says AHAYAH, if I whet my glittering sword, and mine hand take hold on judgment, I will render vengeance to mine enemies, and will reward them that hate me. I will make my arrows drunk with blood, and my sword shall devour flesh, and that with the blood of the slain and of the captives, from the beginning of revengeance upon the enemy. Happy art thou, O Israel, who is like unto thee, O people saved by AHAYAH thy mighty God, the shield of thy help, and who is the sword of thy excellency. And thine enemies shall be found liars unto thee, and thou shalt tread upon their high places. AHAYAH saved the poor from the sword, from their mouth, and from the hand of the mighty. In famine he shall redeem thee from death, and in war from the power of the sword. Be ye afraid of the sword, for for wrath bringeth the punishments of the sword, that you may know there is a judgment. AHAYAH mighty God mocketh at fear, and is not affrighted, neither turneth he back from the sword. The wicked have drawn out the sword, and have bent their bow, to cast down the poor and needy, and to slay such as be of upright conversation. Their sword shall enter into their own heart, and their bows shall be broken. My soul is among lions, AHAYAH, and I lie even among them that are set on fire, even the sons of men whose teeth are spears and arrows, and their tongue a sharp sword. Behold, they belch out with their mouth, swords are in their lips, for who saith they don't hear? They shall fall by the sword, they shall be a portion for foxes, says AHAYAH. Who read their tongue like a sword, and bent their bows to shoot their arrows, even bitter words? There is that speaketh like the piercing of a sword, but the tongue of the wise is held. A man that beareth false witness against his neighbor is a mule, and a sword, and a sharp arrow. There is a generation whose teeth are as swords, and their jaw teeth as knives, to devour the poor from off the earth, and the needy from among men. AHAYAH thy mighty God shall judge among the nations, and shall rebuke many people, and they shall beat their swords into plowshares, and their spears into pruning hooks. Nations shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war any more. Thy men shall fall by the sword, and thy mighty in the war. Every one that is found shall be thrust through, and every one that is joined unto them shall fall by the sword. Then shall the Assyrian fall with the sword, not of a mighty man, and the sword, not of a mean man, shall devour him, but he shall flee from the sword, and his young men shall be discomfited. For my sword shall be bathed in heaven. Behold, it shall come down upon Idumea, and upon the people of my curse to judgment. The sword of mighty God AHAYAH is filled with blood. It is made fat with fatness, and with the blood of lambs and goats, with the fat of the kidney of rams. For mighty God AHAYAH had a sacrifice in Bozrah, and a great slaughter in the land of Idumea. Behold, I will send a blast upon him, and he shall hear a rumor, and return to his own land, and I will cause him to fall by the sword in his own land. Therefore will I number you to the sword, and you shall fall. You shall all bow down to the slaughter. Because when I called, you did not answer. When I spake, you did not hear, but did evil among mine eyes, and did choose that wherein I delighted not. For by fire and by his sword will mighty God AHAYAH plead with all flesh, and the slain of AHAYAH shall be many. In vain have I smitten your children, says AHAYAH. They receive no correction. Your own sword had devoured your prophets, like a destroying lion. Therefore, thus says AHAYAH, mighty God of hosts, Behold, I will punish them. The young men shall die by the sword, their sons and their daughters shall die by famine. The spoilers are come upon all high places through the wilderness, for the sword of AHAYAH mighty God shall devour from the one end of the land even unto the other end of the land. No flesh shall have peace. Therefore, thus says AHAYAH mighty God, concerning the prophets that prophesy in my name, and I sent them not, yet they say, Sword and famine shall not be in this land, but by sword and famine shall those prophets be consumed. And the people to whom they prophesy shall be cast out in the streets of Jerusalem, because of the famine and the sword, and they shall have none to bury them, their wives, nor their sons, nor their daughters, for I will pour their wickedness upon them, says AHAYAH. And it shall come to pass, if they say unto thee, Whither shall we go forth? Then thou shalt tell them, Thus says AHAYAH mighty God, Such as are for death to death, and such as are for the sword to the sword. and such as are for the famine to the famine, and such as are for the captivity to the captivity. And I will appoint over them 4 kinds, said AHAYAH mighty God, the sword to slay, and the dogs to tear, and the fowls of the heaven, and the beasts of the earth to devour and destroy. They shall die of grievous deaths. They shall not be lamented, neither shall they be buried, but they shall be as dung, shit, upon the face of the earth, and they shall be consumed by the sword, and by the famine, and their carcasses shall be meat for the fowls of heaven, and for the beasts of the earth. And they shall drink and be moved, and be mad, because of the sword that I will send among them. Therefore thou shalt say unto them, Thus said AHAYAH mighty God of hosts, the mighty God of Israel, Drink you and be drunken, and spew and fall, and rise no more, because of the sword which I will send among you. For lo, I begin to bring evil on the city which is called by my name, and should ye be utterly unpunished? You shall not be unpunished, for I will call for a sword upon all the inhabitants of the earth, said AHAYAH mighty God of hosts. A noise shall come even to the ends of the earth, for AHAYAH mighty God had a controversy with the nations. He will plead with all flesh. He will give them that are wicked to the sword, says AHAYAH Elohim, mighty God. Thus says AHAYAH mighty God of hosts, Behold, I will send upon them the sword, the famine, and the pestilence, and will make them like vile figs that cannot be eaten. They are so evil. I will persecute them with the sword, with the famine, and with the pestilence, and will deliver them to be removed to all the kingdoms of the earth, to be a curse, and an astonishment, and a hissing, and a reproach among all the nations whither I have driven them. Therefore, thus says AHAYAH mighty God, You have not hearkened unto me in proclaiming liberty, which is freedom, every one to his brother, and every man to his neighbor. Behold, I proclaim a liberty for you, said AHAYAH mighty God, to the sword, to the pestilence, and to the famine, and I will make you to be removed into all the kingdoms of the earth. Cursed be he that doth the work of mighty God AHAYAH deceitfully, and cursed be he that keepeth back his sword from blood. A sword is upon the liars, and they shall dote. A sword is upon her mighty men, and they shall be dismayed. A third part of these shall die with the pestilence, and with famine shall they be consumed in the midst of thee. And a third part shall fall by the sword round about thee. And I will scatter a third part into all the winds, and I will draw out a sword after them. So will I send upon you famine and evil beasts, and they shall bereave thee, and pestilence and blood shall pass through thee. And I will bring the sword upon thee. I, AHAYAH mighty God, have spoken it. And say, Ye mountains of Israel, hear the word of AHAYAH mighty God. Thus says AHAYAH Elohim, which means mighty God, to the mountains and to the hills, and to the rivers and to the valleys, which represent people. Behold, I, even I, will bring a sword upon you, and I will destroy your high places. Thus said AHAYAH mighty God, Smite with thine hand, and a stamp with thy foot, and say, Alas, for all the evil abominations of the house of Israel, for they shall fall by the sword, by the famine, and by the pestilence. He that is far off shall die of the pestilence, and he that is near shall fall by the sword, and he that remaineth and is besieged shall die by the famine. Thus will I accomplish my fury upon them, says AHAYAH. The sword is without, and the pestilence and the famine within. He that is in the field shall die with the sword, and he that is in the city, famine and pestilence shall devour him. But I will leave a few men of them from the sword, from the famine, and from the pestilence, that they may declare all their abominations among the heathen whither they come, and they shall know that I am AHAYAH their mighty God. And say to the land of Israel, Thus says AHAYAH mighty God, Behold, I am against thee, and will draw forth my sword out of his sheath, and will cut off from thee the righteous and the wicked. Seeing then that I will cut off from thee the righteous and the wicked, therefore shall my sword go forth out of his sheath against all flesh, from the south to the north, that all flesh may know that I am AHAYAH, thy mighty God, have drawn forth my sword out of his sheath. It shall not return any more. Son of man, prophesy and say, Thus says AHAYAH, mighty God. Say, a sword is sharpened, and also furbished. And he had given it to be furbished, that it may be handled. This sword is sharpened, and it is furbished, to give it into the hand of the slayer. Cry and howl, son of man, for it shall be upon my people, it shall be upon all the princes of Israel. Terrors by reason of the sword shall be upon my people. Smite therefore upon thy thigh. Thou therefore, son of man, prophesy and smite thine hands together, and let the sword be doubled the third time. The sword of the slain, it is the sword of the great men that are slain, which entered into their privy chambers. I have set the point of the sword against all their gates, that their heart may faint, and their ruins be multiplied. It is made bright, it is wrapped up for the slaughter. And I will set my jealousy against thee, and they shall deal furiously with thee. They shall take away thy nose and thine ears, and thine remnant shall fall by the sword. They shall take thy sons and thy daughters, and thy residue shall be devoured by the fire. Speak unto the house of Israel. Thus says AHAYAH Elohi, Behold, I will profane my sanctuary, the excellency of your strength, the desire of your eyes, and that which your soul pitieth. And your sons and your daughters whom you have left shall fall by the sword. Therefore, thus says AHAYAH, mighty God, I will also stretch out my hand upon Edom, who is Esau, the white man, and will cut off man and beast from it. And I will make it desolate from Teman, and they of Dedan shall fall by the sword. And her daughters which are in the field shall be slain by the sword, and they shall know that I am AHAYAH, mighty God. He shall slay with the sword thy daughters in the field, and he shall make a fort against thee, and cast a mount against thee, and lift up the buckler against thee. There is Meshach, Tubal, and all her multitude. Her graves are sound about him, all of them uncircumcised, slain by the sword, though they caused their terror in the land of the living. And they shall not lie with the mighty that are fallen of the uncircumcised, which are gone down to hell with their weapons of war, and they have laid their swords under their heads. But their iniquity shall be upon their bones, though they were the terror of the mighty in the land of the living. Yea, thou shalt be broken in the midst of the uncircumcised, and shall lie with them that are slain with the sword. There is Edom, who is Esau, her kings, and all her princes, which with their might are laid by them that were slain by the sword. They shall lie with the uncircumcised, and with them that go down to the pit of hell. There be the princes of the north, all of them, and all the Zidonians, which are gone down with the slain. With their terror they are ashamed of their might, and they lie uncircumcised with them that be slain by the sword, and they bear their shame with them that go down to the pit of hell. Pharaoh shall see them, and shall be comforted over all his multitude, even Pharaoh and all his army slain by the sword, says AHAYAH, mighty God. For I have caused my terror in the land of the living, and he shall be laid in the midst of the uncircumcised with them that are slain with the sword, even Pharaoh and all his multitude, said AHAYAH, mighty God. Say thou thus unto them, Thus says AHAYAH, mighty God, As I live, surely that they that are in the waste shall fall by the sword, and him that is in the open field will I give to the beast to be devoured. And they that be in the forts and in the caves shall die of the pestilence. Because thou hast had a perpetual hatred, and hast shed the blood of the children of Israel by the force of the sword in thine time of their calamity, in the time that their iniquity had an end. Therefore, thus said AHAYAH mighty God, surely in the fire of my jealousy have I spoken against the residue of the heathen, and against all Idumea, which have appointed my land into their possession with the joy of all their heart, with despiteful minds to cast it out for a prey. For in my jealousy and in the fire of my wrath have I spoken. Surely in that day there shall be a great shaking in the land of Israel. And I will call for a sword against him throughout all my mountains, said AHAYAH mighty God. Every man's sword shall be against his brother. And the heathen shall know that the house of Israel went into captivity for their iniquity, because they trespassed against me. Therefore hid I my face from them, and gave them into the hand of their enemies, so fell they all by the sword. Thus says AHAYAH Elohi, for 3 transgressions of Edom, who is Esau, and for 4, I will not turn away the punishment thereof, because he did pursue his brother with the sword, and did cast off all pity, and his anger did tear perpetually, and he kept his wrath forever. And I will overthrow the throne of the kingdoms, and I will destroy the strength of the kingdoms of the heathen, and I will overthrow the chariots and those that ride in them, and the horses and their riders shall come down, every one by the sword of his brother. Neither their silver nor their gold shall be able to deliver them in the day of AHAYAH's wrath, but the whole land shall be devoured by the fire of his jealousy, for he shall make even a speedy riddance of all them that dwell in the land. Woe to the idle shepherd that leaveth the flock! The sword shall be upon his arm, and upon his right eye. His arm shall be clean dried up, and his right eye shall be utterly darkened. Awake, O sword, against my shepherd, and against the man that is my fellow, said AHAYAH mighty God of hosts. Smite the shepherd, and the sheep shall be scattered, and I will turn mine hand upon the little ones. Think not that I am come to send peace on earth. I came not to send peace, but a sword. Therefore wait ye upon me, said AHAYAH mighty God, until the day that I rise up to the prey. For my determination is to gather the nations, that I may assemble the kingdoms to pour upon them mine indignation, even all my fierce anger, for all the earth shall be devoured with the fire of my jealousy. And that is the end of the sword. Thank you for listening.